Alright, welcome back to a new video. I haven't made a video in quite some time now, but yes, I've been going on that streak 66 days semi retention, but I relapsed, unfortunately. I couldn't take it anymore, man. The isolation, man, I just can't take it, and this is the topic of this video. The isolation, the social isolation, it's really tough. Nowadays, in the age of individualism, almost everyone is alone, bro. Like, they spend most of the time alone. You pass next to cafes, people are sitting next to each other, but everyone is looking at their phone. And a lot of people, and sometimes even people they're sitting alone on their desks. So yeah, there is individualism, but not only in the sense of sitting alone in a particular space, but also in lacking communication. Because loneliness is about the feeling of loneliness is the feeling. It's not about being alone, because there is numbing discomfort and there is solitude, right? Solitude is about thriving alone. It's about chasing your own goals. It's about not feeling disconnected, not feeling lonely from being alone. Whereas loneliness is about the negative feeling of feeling isolated, wanting connection but lacking connection. Right? So this is the distinction. Yeah, most people nowadays, they just don't care enough. I mean, the isolation is really intense. The isolation is really, I've seen a post on Instagram. It's probably an oversimplification, but I've seen a post on Instagram claiming that being lonely for intense periods is for a long period is like is 5 times it's 5 times worse than drinking alcohol on health or mental health. I don't know if this is true, but anyways, it just shows the effect of loneliness. Humans are social creatures. They evolved to live with each other, right? To interdependently, right? They are not meant to live alone, to sit in their houses 24/7 scrolling on social media. This is not the life that we evolved for. No longer why you feel so difficult. No longer why you're struggling, right? With the anxiety, with the depression, with all that. Yeah, I guess this is understandable to most of you. Humans are social creatures. They are meant to socialize. Yes, you can spend time alone, chasing your goals, etc. But you still need connection. I've been lonely, I've been suffering from isolation, from lacking communication, meaningful communication for years now, 10 years or so. And it's really tough. When I'm isolated, I tend to get a lot of negative thoughts. I really can't fight these. So I still get them even when I'm around people. But they relieve me from these feelings. They help me with these thoughts. They ease up. They don't come with the same quantity, with the same intensity, right? Because I'm busy talking with a person. I'm focusing on something else. And when I tend to direct my attention fully, that's when they reduce a lot. Like with kickboxing, I recently started kickboxing. I tend to give kickboxing a lot of attention, right? When you're on the training, right, where you're on the doing the activity, you pour in everything that you got. You give it a lot of attention, and you tend to forget about background noise. Yeah, this is the thing. But with isolation right now, but in everyday situation, how long can you train? Maybe 1 hour, 2 hours. How long? Because the day is long, right? So you stay lonely, you stay alone a lot of times. And for me, that's loneliness. I really hate this feeling of loneliness. I'm sick of being alone, or I spend too much time, both indoors and both outdoors. Even if there are people a bit outdoors, though we don't have a social life where I live, there are very few people, and most people, they mind their business, they don't interact much. So yeah, even if there are people, it's about the interaction. It's about feeling. It's about feeling present with these people. It's about feeling alive, right? This is this is how you can combat loneliness. You gotta engage, you gotta interact. This is how it is for me, at least. Just being around people feels like more like an introvert, like being amongst that group, but not belonging to that group. I know this is not like this type is not confirmed, right? So by psychologists, this type of personality, but this is just like an approximate description. Even if I like just look at the kid, like around grown people, like discussing something, but he doesn't understand anything. Even if he's there physically, mentally he's not there. He doesn't feel present with them. He doesn't feel engaged with them. That's the case with me. Loneliness is really a problem, like social isolation, and they really try to push these things with the individualism coming from the West. I mean, influence, not just. I mean, there are many causes. I mean, even people like they don't want connection anymore, bro. They just like a lot of them they like staying on their phones. They like sitting at home. It's more of a habit as well. So the West is just an influence among many influences, right? Some people they just prefer sitting at home. Some people, I mean, they enjoy like laying down, playing video games, right, this and that. And mostly have like a Wi-Fi at home, so that's where they have network connection, so they can keep playing that Free Fire or PUBG, right? So online, right? Yeah. So this is it. I mean. But isolation is really a problem because for me, I mean, I have this obsessive loops. I probably already talked about this, but I have this obsessive loops, right? I tend to think a lot about past events, past people, things that might be considered irrelevant to most. Yeah, this is overthinking, and it's important to differentiate it from deep thinking. Deep thinking is mostly about thinking about ideas, analyzing concepts, right? So trying to come to reasonable conclusions, whereas overthinking is just thinking in loops about things that are irrelevant, without long-term benefit in the future, without conclusions, right? So it's mostly a waste of time with overthinking. Yeah, this is the thing. I tend to overthink. I mean, overthinking is like the cognitive fuel, right? Whereas with I mean, for this isolation things, like because it tends to lead to negative emotions, stress, anxiety, right? I mean, isolation amplifies it, right? So the cognitive, yeah, the cognitive fuel is mostly the overthinking. Like my brain tends to overthink a lot. It's like a cognitive engine that never shuts down, or barely shuts down, because it does shut down a bit in sleep. I don't think it's sleep. So yeah. I would say that, yeah, my brain is a highly active cognitive engine. The cognitive fuel is, the fuel is most likely like the isolation. That's the environment where the thinking like intensifies. Obsessive loops, yeah, I tend to overthink it into thinking loose a lot, to replay events a lot that are irrelevant to most, insignificant to most, like people passing from the streets, like a normal conversation, a particular person, they just stick on my mind. I attach too much salience to them, too much attention to them, they grab my attention. They become significant. So the key is to reduce that significance, because I cannot eliminate my thoughts. It's like telling a human not to walk ever again, when walking is an essential part of human life. It's an essential activity, right? It's an essential movement. This is the same. You cannot tell my brain, because that's biological. Some brain, if you don't know, some brains, they tend to process a lot more the word deeply than most. Most people, they cannot realize like how it feels like to have such brain, and we tend to think that ours are like us, but in reality, it's not the same. I mean, people, they process the word differently. Some people process like the word a different depth. Like a lot of us analytical people, we tend to process deeply, right? So we don't just like this happened, okay, we tend to analyze why this happened, what are the possibilities, what if I done this, what if I have done this, what if I don't have done that, right? It can be considered overthinking if it doesn't lead to conclusions, but you get the idea, right? So it's about the depth, it's about being analytical, right? So no, overthinking and analytical is not the same. Analytical is also about deep thinking, right? So overthinking is specific. It's about rumination. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I mean, it's really tough because it's like, how can you attach little attention to these thoughts? Because like the time you notice them, you already give them attention, you already give them value. But it's not the same. Like you can give something value and then notice something but let it pass. It's not the same as thinking about it, constantly thinking about it, making it a big deal. Right? So it's not the same. You can just think about something and let it pass. But acting on it or continue thinking about it, analyzing it, that's different. Yes, there could be sometimes subconscious, but it's controllable to a certain degree, at least with the acting. I mean, with the thoughts, yeah, partially you can divert your thinking, but for me it doesn't work unless what I'm doing is truly intense, that it requires most of my cognitive energy. So this is the thing. I need to attach less significance to a lot of these thoughts, because I tend to give them a lot of significance. That's why they stick on my mind. My threshold for Celsius is too high. I have strong encoding for most things, right? That give my attention, and for things that don't give my attention, not really. That's why a lot of people, they tend to remember things like they when they give it lots of attention, and things that they don't. It's similar to how ADHD brains tend to work, right? So a lot of people with ADHD, they have strong encoding on things that like they care about. That's why they tend to invest a lot of. They also have the desire and ambition to learn things that interest them. They can spend hours learning them. Whereas with things that they don't interest them, they really struggle to even initiate. That's the problem. Yeah, I don't know if I have ADHD, but I definitely have a lot of its symptoms, like lack of impulse control, difficulty making decisions. I'm not able to focus on a lot of things, right? So this interest thing, right? So things that I'm interested in, to put the effort in them, I'm struggling to do something that I'm not interested in. I tend to feel emotions deeply, right? So this is also about correlated with ADHD, right? It's one of the symptoms. I tend to feel, though there can be other reasons, habits, preferences, personality differences, so it's not necessary. That's why, like doctors, when they tend to diagnose for ADHD, they tend to look for a wide range of symptoms. Because feeling emotions deeply could just be a personality trait rather than ADHD. Feeling overstimulation strongly, right? Being stimulated easily, feeling that overstimulation, feeling things stronger. Possibly leading to addiction with overstimulation, because if you can feel overstimulation strongly, it can lead to being more prone to addiction. Because I heard that ADHD brains tend to fall into addiction easier. I don't know, but as I said, there are many reasons as well. Environmental factors, not so strong willpower, right? So there are many reasons why one could fall into addiction, right? So isolation as well, right? One of the biggest drivers of addiction. Bad company, the ones who teach you these addictions. Lack of support, you don't have to deal with everything alone, but at the same time, sometimes you can't find anyone to help you, especially in this world. Psychologists, they don't know nothing, man. Like, not in the literal sense, but they don't get too deep, like the way I want them to do. Like, they don't go deep with me. Like, they stay superficial with the advices. They tend to rehearse the same bullshit they tell other people, so yeah. So poor people really don't care. They can pretend to care, but they don't really care. Whether you stay alive or not, whether you deal with this or that. They don't really care. Let's face it, most people don't really care. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. It's really a problem with isolation. Isolation is like an amplifier. This is where the thoughts thrive, because if you don't occupy yourself, I wouldn't even want to occupy myself, I still get these thoughts, and they obstruct me from chasing my goals, from doing what I want to do. As I said, unless the activity is so intense. But if you can distract yourself even a little bit by staying alone, and doing these thoughts, like doing something else, chasing your goals, maybe learning a programming language, reading books, etc., playing video games even, that's good for you, but for me it doesn't really work. What works for me is the connection, the human connection, not in someone else with, like, who shares the same experiences, the same emotions, right? Who can relate to you in a true sense. The expressions, the physical presence is what relieves stress for me, what relieves this feeling of loneliness for me, which is the fuel for this obsessive thought loops. It's not something else. I mean, even with the stress, even with all that, right? So it helps relieve that. Yeah, that's what works for me. But it's hard to find any physical, like, I mean, to any person to talk with nowadays, bro. Like, it's really hard. It's really that bad. You can't find someone who's to constantly talk with. People don't give you much time. Even like most people, they aren't interested anyway. So I already talked about this in a previous video, I think. But yeah, this is the problem. I'm not willing to listen. They are not engaging enough for my liking. They don't engage. Yeah, they don't engage deeply. They don't question. They don't challenge. They are not funny. They are not. They are all a lot of people like nowadays. They can tell they are depressed just by their expressions. The expressions on their faces. They are like, it's a pattern. It's not like just seeing someone making an expression for one time and then judging them. But it's a pattern. And when you see someone always sad or always angry, that's more like a pattern. It's like a personality. It drives people away, and it kills the engagement. It kills the energy sometimes. Right? So when you see someone like they are not willing to engage like energy, I mean, I said it like sometimes it kills off the vibe. And when I talk about deep processing, it's about like humans, bro. Like I see a lot of people, they tend to act in a predictable way, like in more like a scripted way, especially online. When you see people like they say the same stuff, the same phrases. Yes, there are more bots than online today in the internet, but this is not the point. For example, in Omegle, you see people like they either cuss you if you cuss them. In a vague sense, they either cuss you, they either skip, or they either. Yes, they either cuss you, they either skip, or rarely they either continue to try to calm you down. Very rarely. These are three patterns, right? Now, even in these patterns, there are sub patterns, because even in cussing, some people could respond aggressively. Some people could respond calmly. They could cuss you calmly. Some people could cuss you playfully. So even if they are hurt inside, they pretend not to, because they try to show that they are a strong person. But that doesn't fool me, because in most cases it isn't. People who really don't care won't spend too much time and energy trying to respond just so they can harm their psyche. Either they are conscious or unconscious of it. Because even when you engage in these activities like middle finger, like cussing, you tend to influence your psyche negatively. Right? You tend to influence your psyche negatively, whether you realize it or not. Whether you realize it or not. So this is what I'm gonna say. People who really don't care, people who value their psyche, their mental well-being, they don't just engage in these things. They don't engage in these things because they know that unless they perceive the benefit to be more than the risk, then it could be a different, it could be justifiable. But in most cases, like you don't really gain much. I mean, you're not changing others' opinions. You're just getting into forward back cussing, like insulting. I mean, what reasonable like outcomes could they lead to? I mean, people don't really care. Like, would you change someone by cussing them? Would you? People who misbehave just misbehave. Yeah, so it's mostly a waste of time, right? A waste of energy. I mean, yeah. So there are some patterns. Whereas, as I said, there are sub patterns with the skipping. Some people skip immediately. So some people they stare, and then they skip. Right. With the skipping, I mean, some people they skip immediately. Yes, they stare after. This is after cussing, right? I'm sorry for losing focus of what I was trying to say because someone is knocking on my door and I hate this. But let's continue anyways. Yes, so some people they skip, some people they just stay. I mean, they stare at you while you cuss them. Some people respond. Some people try to calm you. This is very, very, very like rare from my experience. As I said, there are sub patterns with the skipping. They skip you immediately. Some people skip you immediately. Some people wait a bit and then they skip. With the response, with the respectful response, very rare. They tend to calm you down. As I said, this is very rare. There are probably sub patterns in that way, in how they try to calm you down, right? For example, they might say relax. For example, why you say that, like you get what I'm saying. So it's more like a non-negative response, a non-skipping. Yeah. So yeah, this is the rarest response in my opinion. With the negative response, as I said, there are the aggressive types that respond like harshly, negatively, like straight middle finger, straight cussing loudly, right? I mean, most people they don't even have like the social courage to talk on the camera, right? To show themselves or talk. So they mostly just throw these middle fingers, right? And they might see that you. I mean, they are rarely aware that you. They rarely display awareness that you might be speaking a different language. So they try to speak your own language. I mean, from what I see, like when they try to initiate conversation, don't ask you what language are you speaking. They just initiate in their language, even if their language is obscure. Nobody talks it. Almost, right? So, and when the response, even if you speak a different language, they sometimes respond in their own language regardless. So, I mean, it is what it is. These people, yeah, they show signs of lacking awareness, but it could be something else. It could be examine internally, be aware of these things.